Welcome everyone, Zach here for another episode of Nourishing Earth. Today we're going to be making some really healthy and really tasty raw vegan veggie burgers. Now this recipe has quite a few ingredients in it, but part of what I would like to convey and express through this video is the versatility of not only this recipe, but almost all raw vegan recipes. So please don't be intimidated by the large array of ingredients. I'm going to show you what I use and also give a few examples of other things that you are welcome to use in place of these ingredients. You don't need to have every single one of these vegetables and every one of the nuts and seeds. So I will go over it as I show the ingredients. What I'm using today is 3 carrots and a half of a sweet potato. If you do not have these, feel free to use other root veggies. The primary importance of this is to provide texture in the recipe. We're going to be using nuts. I processed these in the blender briefly to create a coarse consistency. This is 1.5 cups of walnuts. If you don't have walnuts, feel free to use almonds or any seed for the most part, should work just fine. What we have here is a half a cup of sunflower, which I processed similarly. It is a coarse consistency. The main function of these is going to be to provide a textural contrast to the vegetable slurry we're making. Our vegetable slurry is going to consist of this here. We've got 4 celery stalks. Feel free to use fennel as well. I've done this before with 2 celery stalks and 2 fennel stalks, and it turned out great. We have got, let's see here, a half of a cup of tomato. We have got a third of a cup of onion, 1 cup of squash or zucchini, 1 cup of bell pepper, a sweet bell pepper, a third of a cup of kale. We've got 1 date, and if you don't have date, feel free to use coconut nectar, agave, or any sweetener that you would enjoy. And we've got a little bit of garlic. This is probably about a tablespoon of chopped garlic. You can use garlic powder if you don't have fresh garlic. And almost all of these can be subbed out. What you're going to find when preparing this recipe is that as you dehydrate the ingredients, a lot of the flavors become extremely pronounced. So pepper, I think, is a particularly important one. I wouldn't go without pepper, and I wouldn't go without tomato, personally. But besides that, the rest of this you can have fun with and explore. You know, whatever you've got, just try it out. So we're going to be blending all of these together to make a slurry. What we're also going to be adding to this vegetable slurry is some spices that we have here. We have got 3 teaspoons of sea salt. We have 1 teaspoon of cumin, 1 teaspoon of thyme, and 3 teaspoons of basil. If you have fresh basil, I would definitely go that route, but currently I do not have any. We also have just a couple of pinches of peppers. I used cayenne last time I did it. This time I've got a little bit of habanero and a little bit of chipotle pepper. We're also going to be using, these are our liquid ingredients that we're going to add to our vegetable slurry. I don't want to move it for fear of spilling it, but this is 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. If you do not have olive oil, try any other oil that you have on hand. If you don't have apple cider vinegar, use more lemon juice. We're also going to be adding a half of a lemon worth of juice, but if you didn't have any apple cider vinegar, go ahead and try a whole lemon or a lemon and a half, something like that. This is a very important ingredient. This is chia seed flour. If you don't have this, you're going to want flax. Flax or chia is an important aspect of this recipe because they are binding agents. This is going to help to make our root veggies and our vegetable slurry nut mix all bind together and form into the patties that are going to become the burgers. And we've got 3 tablespoons of sesame seed. If you don't have sesame, maybe more sunflower, really whatever you want. Pumpkin seeds would be good. But those are our base ingredients. Now I'm going to show you how to prepare them. Alright, our first step is to process our root veggies into chunks. Now, we don't want to use a blender for this, so ideally, if you have a food processor or a slow processing juicer, we are going to use one of those. I'm going to turn it on. Well, I made a little bit of a mess, but what I was trying to do, and what I did successfully for the most part, is I ground the root veggies into nice chunky consistency. We don't want them to be pureed because this is going to provide a great texture for our burger. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. What I did here is I added the what's called the blank plate for the juicer. The normal juicing tool has a screen on here, and it processes the veggies through this part and then allows the juices to drip out and be caught. You see, I made a little bit of a mess. I should have had the juice catch down there. But the function of this tool is to keep all the juice in it, essentially, and process it straight into a pulp without pulling the juice out. By keeping the juice in, our flavor is going to be a little bit more full. But you could definitely experiment with using extracted juice pulp for this recipe as well. What I've done next is add all the rest of our ingredients besides our nuts and seeds to the blender. So I've got the liquid ingredients, I got the lemon juice, I've got the seeds and the chia flour, and I've got all our veggies in here. We're going to blend this up into a slurry. Alright, wonderful. That was pretty quick in this high-powered blender. If you do not have a really high-powered blender, you're probably going to want to let it to go a little bit longer, but you can see it's a pretty soupy, pasty consistency, and that is exactly what we want. I have transferred the veggie slurry into a large mixing bowl. Now we're going to add all the rest of the ingredients. So we're going to throw our root veggie pulp in there. And like I said, if you don't have carrots, maybe beets. If you don't have sweet potato, maybe more carrots. Whatever you want. Just root veggies are important for a good consistency. Then we're going to add our ½ cup of sunflower seeds. And our 1½ cups of walnuts. And then we're just going to stir it all together really well. Fold it all into each other. Now, depending on the moisture of the veggies that you choose to use, you may need to add a little bit extra chia flour. We're going to see where this is going. Or flax flour, like I said. Or additional binding agent may be necessary because we want this to be a good, moist enough that it mixes well, but dry enough so that it can be formed into patties so that we can dehydrate it. Alright, so you can see here, this is pretty well mixed. This is a little bit too wet. I'm not going to be able to form that into patties. So let's go ahead and add some more chia. I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more teaspoons here. 2 more heaping teaspoons. And let's see what that does. The thing with chia and flax is that sometimes you actually have to let it sit for a little bit in order for the thickness to be achieved. So I'm going to probably let this sit for a couple of minutes after this. Go ahead and add a little bit more. This chia is just contributing really good protein as well as amino acids, vitamins, and minerals, so it's no problem to do a little bit more than I planned. But I'm sure that this is going to be an ample amount after it sits for a couple of minutes. So let me go ahead and stir it in, and I will be right back after it sits for about 10 to 15 minutes. Alrighty, 15 minutes later, and the consistency is right where I want it to be. It is thick and goopy, but binding together decently. It may look unappealing currently, but after we dehydrate it out, it will get a nice brown color, and it will look fairly similar to a veggie burger, commercial veggie burger, or even in the spectrum of a meat burger. So what we're going to do now is form it into patties. So get clean hands. Go ahead and adjust this. Have clean hands. and then make little patties, not too thick, maybe a centimeter or so, a little bit less than a centimeter, and space them out. We're going to be using the non-stick sheets. I'm using a Sedona dehydrator, and the primary reason why I choose the Sedona is the non-stick sheets. Well, first of all, it's just like a really great machine, but the thing that really set it apart in my mind is that the non-stick sheets that it uses are made of, I think it's a silicone material, and while I'm not particularly fond of silicone, it very much beats the competition in my mind. The Excalibur, which is kind of the standard in raw food, uses Teflex sheets as their brand name, and Teflex is coated with Teflon, which is a DuPont product. So by purchasing Teflex sheets, you're actually supporting chemical companies that are not harmonious with the environment, not by a long shot. So I've been really happy with my Sedona one so far, and I'm not being paid to say that. Though hopefully if this video gets popular, they will send me another free dehydrator so I can make more food. Go ahead and make your burgers any size. You can play around with different thicknesses, you can play around with different diameters, whatever you like. I'm going to be making some raw vegan bread to eat these on top of. So I will go ahead and make them a diameter which is reasonable in terms of being able to fit on the bread I'm going to make. So as you can see, this recipe is making quite a bit. So if you are trying to make it for less people, go ahead and, you know, make a half batch of this or whatever you'd like. I hope that I was sufficient in expressing the point that you can really adjust almost everything in this recipe. You can use any of the seeds in place of the walnut and sunflower. You can use different seeds, different nuts, whatever you have. You can use different veggies. You could do more pepper, you could do more tomato, you could do something other than squash. I mean, it's really just a bunch of veggies ground up with adequate binding agents and adequate protein content from the nuts and seeds so that we're going to wind up with a good consistency. That's really the only trick to it. And then our oil is going to create a good taste, a good sensation. Kind of a chef trick is that if you have an oil in food and you have a little bit of sugar and you have a little bit of something spicy, even if the food isn't spicy, if you just have a little bit of it, you're going to wind up with a full palate sensation, and that really creates a more profound eating experience. Oh, another thing, that's what the date is for. You know, these are not sweet at all, but just that little bit of sugar is going to go a long way with really making the flavor pop when you eat it. So I'm almost done here. And we're going to dehydrate these for, I don't know, I'm going to go to bed after this and just leave it on overnight. So I'm going to probably leave it in there for 6 to 7 hours, and then I'm going to flip them over in the morning. If you're not going to bed, I would say you can probably flip it in probably 3 to 4 hours. Ideally, with making foods in the dehydrator, the sooner that you can get them flipped over, the better, because the sheets are not ideal for quick drying. Once you get it onto the tray without the sheet, there's air holes that you can see. So then it's going to be able to evaporate the water a lot quicker. So anywhere from, let's say, 3 to 6 hours is going to be a good range for when to check on your patties. And if they are firm enough on the top to be able to peel the sheet off of it and flip it over, then you are good to go. So it looks like this amount is going to fill up 2 dehydrator trays almost exactly. Alright, I'm going to throw these in the dehydrator and I will show you what they look like when I'm flipping them over. One more thing, I'm going to do 105 degrees, but you can experiment with temperatures as you see fit. Just keep it under about 110 so that you can ensure that the enzymes, minerals, and nutrients are remaining active and at their full potential. Okay, I've let the burgers dehydrate for about another 12 hours, and you can see that the color has become nice and dark, and the consistency, they are still a little moist on the inside, but they are decently firm on the outside, which is what I was going for. You can play around with different dehydration times to reach what you find most enjoyable. You can have them more gooey by leaving it less dehydrated, or you can achieve a more firm outside by dehydrating longer. So I went ahead and played around with the presentation and came up with this guy. Pretty cool looking, right? What I've got is a piece of the sunflower bread, and I'll put the link to that in the comments or the description of the video. Got an heirloom tomato. I've got some organic greens that are underneath the tomato there. We've got the burger, the sun mayo, which I'll make a video for soon and put the link to that in the description as well. And then I've got some sunflower sprouts up on top, and then garnished with a little bit of thyme and a lemon piece, and more of the sunflower sprouts and some sunflower seeds. You can see with a little bit of fun and artistic abstraction, you can really present these burgers to be something pretty nice. So let's go ahead and give it a try here. I'm gonna take the lemon off, but I will consume that lemon afterwards because I don't want it to go to waste just to be a garnish. That would be sad. So here we go. It's awesome. The burgers have almost a barbecue type of sensation from the red pepper and the tomato dehydrating. It winds up with a almost like roasted kind of sensation. And then the cumin really stands out too, giving it this kind of, just like a hearty, meaty kind of sensation. So it's been a lot of fun. You can store these. I'm going to store mine in the fridge in a Tupperware container, and then before I eat them, I'll throw them back in the dehydrator for half hour to an hour to let them firm up a little bit and to get nice and warm. So I hope you all enjoyed this recipe. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Nourishing Earth, and I hope to see you all again very soon.